During a live stream, my socialite daughter-in-law threw hot soup at me just to entertain her followers. Her family laughed and said, "Relax, it's just a joke." 2 minutes later, my millionaire son broke down the door, adjusted his suit, and said 3 words that made her beg for forgiveness. "I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment with the city you're watching from, so I can see how far my story has traveled. My name is Alice, and I am 68 years old. I never thought that at my age I would be sitting on the floor of my own kitchen, with tomato soup dripping down my white blouse, while my daughter-in-law Noelle laughed in front of a camera as if she had just told the funniest joke in the world. "Oops, how clumsy I am," Noelle shouted towards her phone, where thousands of people were watching her live. "Look what I did to my little mother-in-law." The hot liquid had splashed onto my left arm, leaving a red mark that stung like fire, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the humiliation I felt listening to the laughter coming from the screen. The comments kept appearing one after another. "Ha ha, poor lady. Noelle, you're awful. More content like this." I remained motionless, feeling the soup cool on my clothes while Noelle continued her performance. Her eyes shone with a satisfaction that chilled my blood. This had not been an accident. "Don't worry about her," Noelle continued, gesturing towards me as if I were part of the furniture. "Alice is super strong, aren't you, mother-in-law? Besides, it was just tomato soup, not sulfuric acid." The laughter of my other relatives resonated from the living room. My sister Rose, my brother-in-law Charles, even my own niece Mary applauded as if they had just witnessed a play. For months, they had all been coming on Sundays to be part of Noelle's show, where I had been converted into the comedic character without my consent. "Relax, Aunt Alice," Mary yelled from the sofa. "It's just a joke. Noelle does this to entertain us." Rose peered into the kitchen with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Alice, don't be so dramatic," she said. "You know Noelle loves you very much. She's just being creative." Creative. That word pierced me like a dagger. For the last 8 months, ever since Noelle had converted my house in New York into her personal recording studio, my life had become an endless series of creative jokes that always ended with me as the target of the laughter. I got up slowly, feeling my knees protest. At my 68 years of age, getting up from the floor was not as easy as it used to be. Noelle didn't even look at me. She was too busy reading the comments that were coming in. 500 new followers in the last 5 minutes, she announced triumphantly. "This is incredible. Alice, you are my good luck charm." A good luck charm. As if I were an object, not a person. As if my 68 years of life, of raising Michael, of working day and night to give him everything he needed, had been reduced to being the entertainment for a 26-year-old girl who had entered my family just 3 years ago. As I walked towards the sink to clean myself, I heard Noelle telling her followers about our so-fun family dynamic. She described how I was super funny without trying, and how crazy things always happened when she broadcast from home. What she didn't tell them was how she had converted my home into her personal set, how she had moved my furniture for better lighting, how she had prohibited me from cooking my favorite American meals, like turkey and mashed potatoes, because they didn't look good on camera, how she had convinced me to wear certain clothes because they matched the aesthetic of her channel better. She also didn't mention how she had gradually been distancing Michael from me. First, it was subtle comments. "Your mother is so tired lately, we better not bother her." Then they became more direct. "Alice needs her space, Michael. She's old. Let her live her life." Michael worked so much that he barely came home. His consulting firm kept him traveling constantly, and when he returned, Noelle made sure our conversations were brief and superficial. "We don't want to bore Michael with domestic problems," she would tell me with that fake smile she had perfected. But what hurt the most was the silence. my own silence. I had raised Michael to be respectful of women, to value family, to protect those he loved. How could I tell him that his wife was turning me into a circus act? How could I break his marital happiness with my complaints? So I kept quiet. I smiled when they asked me to appear in the broadcasts. I nodded when Noelle suggested I wear funnier aprons for the recording sticks. I endured it when she made me the comic relief for her Instagram stories, until today. Until the hot soup burned not only my skin, but also the last bit of my dignity. As I dried my hands with a towel that was also stained with soup, I looked up at the mirror hanging over the sink. The woman looking back at me had disheveled grey hair, red tomato stains on her cheeks, and something in her eyes that I hadn't seen in months. It was determination. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what would come next. That night, after everyone left and Noelle went upstairs to edit her video, I sat in my favorite rocking chair with a cup of chamomile tea. The burn on my arm still hurt, but it was a minor pain compared to the one I had been carrying in my chest for months. As I rocked gently, my mind traveled to the day I met Noelle. Michael had come home beaming, with that smile I hadn't seen on him since he was a child. "Mom, I want to introduce you to someone very special," he had told me, taking my hand with that tenderness that always melted my heart. Noelle had entered my living room like a gust of fresh air. She was beautiful, no doubt. Brown hair that cascaded over her shoulders, green eyes that sparkled with intelligence, and that musical laugh that filled any room. She wore an elegant, but not ostentatious navy blue dress, and when she greeted me, she did so with a warmth that immediately made me think, "This is the woman who will make my son happy." "Mrs. Alice," she had said, taking my hands in hers, "Michael has told me so much about you. He says you are the strongest and wisest woman he knows." At that moment, I had felt my heart expand. After years of worrying about Michael finding someone who would value him, that person had finally arrived. The first few months were like a dream. Noelle would come for dinner every Sunday, help me in the kitchen, and ask me about the family recipes I had inherited from my mother. She even asked me to teach her how to make the apple pie that Michael loved so much. "I want to learn everything you know," she would tell me as we kneaded the dough together. "I want Michael to feel that he has the same love and care that you always gave him." There was something in the way she said, "you always gave him," that should have alerted me, as if my time for caring for Michael were over, as if it were her turn now. But I was so happy to see Michael in love, so relieved that he had found someone who seemed to truly love him, that I ignored those small red flags. The first time Noelle suggested changing something in my house was 6 months after the wedding. Michael and she had temporarily moved in with me while they looked for their own place, but every week there was a new excuse. The apartment they liked was already rented, prices had gone up, they needed more time to save. "Alice," Noelle had told me one afternoon while I was watering my plants in the garden, "don't you think this living room would look amazing with better lighting? I've been watching some decorating shows, and I think we could work wonders here." At first it seemed innocent. She just wanted to modernize the space a little. She changed the heavy curtains that my late husband had chosen for lighter ones. She moved some furniture to create better flow. She replaced my family photographs with plants and more contemporary decorative objects. "Personal photos can be distracting when I have work visits," she explained, when I asked where the photo of Michael graduating from college was. "But they are stored very safely in my closet." Work. That was another gradual change. Noelle had started her YouTube channel as a hobby, sharing recipes and beauty tips, but little by little, my house had become her main office. "The natural light here is perfect," she would tell me when she installed her recording equipment in my dining room. "And besides, isn't it nice that we share this space? We're like mother and daughter. Mother and daughter. Those words had filled me with warmth the first time I heard them. I had never had a daughter, and the idea of Noelle seeing me that way had deeply moved me. But I gradually realized that to Noelle, mother and daughter meant something very different than it did to me. For her, I was the mother who did the chores while she built her career, the mother who cooked for her guests while she recorded content, the mother who remained quiet and smiling while she became the center of attention. The most subtle but devastating change had been how she began to manage my relationship with Michael. At first, there were small interruptions. If Michael and I were talking, she would appear with some urgency. If he called me on the phone, she would take the receiver to greet him too and end up monopolizing the conversation. "Your mother looks so tired lately," I heard her tell Michael one night. "Maybe you should let her rest more instead of bothering her with work problems." Work problems. That was what she had begun to call our conversations, as if my interest in my son's life were a burden to him. Gradually, Michael began to visit me less. His calls became more sporadic. When he came home, Noelle made sure we were always accompanied, never alone. There was always something urgent she needed to discuss with him, some work problem or some plan they had made together. "We're a team now, Alice," she had explained when I finally mustered the courage to ask her why Michael and I weren't talking like before. "Marriages need privacy to function. I'm sure you understand that." And I had understood, or at least I had convinced myself that I understood. After all, I didn't want to be the intrusive mother-in-law that they made fun of so much on TV comedies. But now, sitting in my rocking chair with my arms still burning, I realized that I had misunderstood everything. Noelle hadn't been protecting her marriage. She had been building a wall between Michael and me, brick by brick, smile by smile, until my own son had become a stranger in the house where I raised him. And the most painful thing of all was that she had succeeded without him realizing it. To Michael, Noelle was still the perfect wife who took care of his elderly mother. He didn't see the cameras recording every intimate moment of my life. He didn't know that my cooking had been criticized live in front of thousands of strangers. He had no idea that my pain had become entertainment. As I finished my tea, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to start documenting every moment, every humiliation, every small cruelty. If Noelle wanted to play with cameras, she was going to discover that two could play that same game. Only this time, I would control the narrative. 3 days had passed since the soup incident. 3 days in which Noelle had been particularly animated because her video had reached more than 50,000 views. 3 days in which I had carried that burn on my arm as a constant reminder of how far my humiliation had gone. It was Tuesday afternoon when I heard the sound of an unfamiliar engine in my driveway. From the kitchen window, I saw a black BMW parking right behind Noelle's red car. My heart sped up when I recognized the figure who got out of the vehicle. Michael. But there was something different about him. His posture was straighter, more confident. He was wearing a suit I had never seen on him before. Dark gray, perfectly tailored, with a navy blue tie that gave him an air of authority that surprised me. Even from a distance, I could see that something had changed in my son. Noelle was in the living room setting up for another live broadcast. She had moved the furniture again, this time creating what she called an intimate corner, where she planned to have a question-and-answer session with her followers. She had asked me to stay out of the frame for the next 2 hours. "Today I'm going to talk about more serious topics," she had explained that morning. "About marriage, about family, about how to maintain harmony in the home. I don't need distractions." Distractions. That was me now in my own house. The sound of the front door opening startled me. Michael never arrived unannounced. He always called first. He always coordinated with Noelle to make sure it was a good time. "Michael?" I heard Noelle's surprised voice from the living room. "What are you doing here? You didn't tell me you were coming." I quietly moved towards the kitchen entrance, from where I could see part of the living room. Michael was standing on the threshold, observing the chaos of recording equipment, lights, and cables that had converted our home into a makeshift television studio. "I didn't know I needed permission to visit the house where I grew up," Michael replied with a calmness that chilled my blood. His voice sounded different, colder, more controlled. Noelle let out a nervous laugh as she quickly began to disconnect her camera. "No, of course you don't need permission, honey. It's just that I was about to do a broadcast and... Where is my mother?" The words cut the air like a knife. Michael had not asked how Noelle was, had not given explanations for his unexpected arrival, had not shown the slightest interest in his wife's activities. He had only asked for me. She's in the kitchen, I think," Noelle stammered. "Why?" Michael walked toward where I was, his steps resonating with a determination that was completely new to me. When our eyes met, I saw something in his gaze that made me tremble. It wasn't anger. It was something much deeper and more dangerous. It was knowledge. "Hello, Mum," he said, approaching to give me a hug that lasted longer than usual. When he separated, his eyes immediately fixed on my arm, where the reddish mark of the burn was still visible. "What is that?" My throat closed up. For 3 days I had rehearsed this conversation in my mind, but now that Michael was here, in front of me, I couldn't find the words. "It was a small accident," I managed to whisper. "What kind of accident?" Noelle appeared behind him, with that bright smile she used for the cameras. "Oh, that! It was so silly, Michael. I was making soup, and the pot slipped. Your mother was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But you know how she is, so strong that she didn't even complain." Michael kept his eyes fixed on me while Noelle spoke. He didn't believe a word. "Were you recording when it happened?" he asked, without turning to look at his wife. The silence that followed was deafening. I could see Noelle struggling to find an answer that wouldn't incriminate her. "Well, yes, I was live, but... And what happened to that video?" "Michael, I don't understand why... What happened to the video, Noelle?" Michael's voice had dropped to a whisper, but there was something in his tone that made even me shiver. Noelle took a step back. It's on my channel. But Michael, you have to understand the context. My followers know it's funny family content. Nobody takes it seriously." Michael took his phone out of the inner pocket of his jacket. His fingers moved quickly over the screen, and I could see his expression harden with every passing second. He was watching the video. The silence in the room was so dense that I could hear my own heart beating. Noelle was wringing her hands. Her usual confidence completely evaporated. I remained motionless, watching my son as he processed what he had just discovered. When Michael finally looked up from the phone, his face was a mask of coldness that I had never seen before. 53,000 views, he said in a low voice. 700 comments laughing about how you humiliated my mother. "Michael, can I explain to you?" "No." The word came out like a shot. "There is no explanation for this." Michael headed towards the stairs, but not to go up. He stopped on the first step and turned to Noelle. In that moment, I saw the successful businessman he had become without me knowing it. I saw the authority, the determination, the power he had developed away from this house. "Pack your bags." 3 words. Just 3 words spoken with absolute calm, but they fell on Noelle like a collapsing building. "What?" Her voice was barely a thread. "You have until tomorrow at noon to pack your things and leave this house." "Michael, you can't be serious. We are husband and wife. You can't just kick me out like this." Michael slowly descended the first step, moving closer to her. I'm going to explain something to you that you don't seem to understand, Noelle. This is not your house. It never was your house. This is my mother's house, where she raised me, where she deserves to live the rest of her days in peace and dignity. But there is no we after what you've done. Noelle turned to me, desperate. Alice, tell him something. Tell him this is a misunderstanding. For the first time in months, all eyes were on me, waiting for me to speak. Michael, with his eyes full of fierce determination. Noelle, with her transparent desperation. And me, with 68 years of life and 3 days of a burn that constantly reminded me of my place in someone else's show. I took a deep breath and found my voice. No, I said simply. I am not going to lie anymore. Noelle's eyes filled with tears, but they were no longer the calculated tears she used for her videos. These were real, born of the panic of losing everything she had built on my silence. Michael nodded, satisfied with my answer. Then he turned back to Noelle. Tomorrow at noon, he repeated. And Noelle, if you ever mention my mother's name on your social media again, if you ever try to contact her or approach this house, you will discover exactly how far my patience can go. He hadn't shouted. He hadn't lost control. But the implicit threat in his words was more terrifying than any explosion of anger. Noelle ran up the stairs, and the sound of her bedroom door slamming shut echoed throughout the house. Michael turned to me, and for the first time in years, I saw my boy in his eyes. But I also saw the man he had become, the man who had learned to protect what he loved. Mum, he said softly, we have a lot to talk about. We sat in the kitchen, away from the chaos of recording equipment that Noelle had left abandoned in the living room. Michael had made coffee for both of us, a simple gesture that reminded me of when he was a teenager, and we would come here to talk about his school problems or his first loves. But this was different. The man in front of me had changed in ways I couldn't fully comprehend. How long did you know? I asked him, breaking the silence that had stretched between us. Michael took a sip of his coffee before answering. 2.5 months. I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. 2.5 months? And you didn't say anything? I needed to be sure. I needed evidence. He took out his phone and slid it across the table toward me. Look. On the screen was a folder full of screenshots, downloaded videos, and documents that I didn't understand. What is all this? Every video where you appear, every cruel comment about you, every time Noelle used you to generate content. His voice was firm, but I could detect the pain behind it. A friend of mine sent me the first video 2 months ago. She thought I knew what was going on. A friend? Sandra Martin. Do you remember her? She worked at my first company. Now she has her own digital marketing agency. Michael paused, running a hand through his hair in a gesture I recognized from when he was a nervous child. She sent me a message asking if I knew that my wife had a channel where she made fun of my mother. The words hit me like stones. She made fun of me? Michael took the phone and began showing me videos I had never seen. They weren't the live broadcasts where I appeared directly. These were videos Noelle recorded afterward, analyzing the funny moments with my participation. Look at this, Noelle was saying in one of the videos, pausing right at the moment where I stumbled while serving dinner. My mother-in-law is so sweet. She always does these little things that make me laugh so much. In another video, Noelle had compiled what she called Alice's best moments of the week. It was a collection of moments where I looked confused, clumsy, or simply tired. Each clip was accompanied by comic music and comments from Noelle that, although they sounded affectionate on the surface, clearly presented me as a ridiculous figure. She has more than 30 videos like that, Michael told me softly, some with hundreds of thousands of views. I felt nauseous. And the people? What are people saying? Michael hesitated before answering. Some comments are cruel. Others are condescending as if you were a funny pet. Very few defending you. I leaned against the back of my chair, feeling as if the world had suddenly become smaller. Why didn't you tell me you knew sooner? Because I needed to understand the whole situation before acting. Michael leaned forward, his eyes fixed on mine. Mom, during these 2 months, I investigated more than just the videos. I hired a private investigator. A private investigator? I wanted to know exactly who Noelle Reston is. What did she do before meeting me? How did she build her channel? And what I discovered. Michael shook his head. It's worse than I imagined. He opened a different folder on his phone and showed me documents that looked official. Noelle has done this before. Before meeting me, she lived with a 65-year-old man named Robert Harris. He had a modest pension, but a nice house in Miami. She lived with him for a year and a half. She also had a YouTube channel then, though smaller. Robert appeared in her videos as the sweetest adoptive grandpa in the world. Michael paused. Until Robert realized that she was stealing money from his bank account. I felt like the room was spinning. Stealing? Small amounts at first. $20 here, $50 there. Later, larger amounts. When Robert confronted her, she disappeared one night, also taking his family jewelry. And after that? After that, she met me. Michael closed the phone and put it away. But here's the part that hurts the most, Mom. Noelle isn't just using you for content. She is using you to build an image of a caring, family-oriented woman that gives her credibility to sell products. Sell products? Have you seen the boxes that constantly arrive? The packages she receives and then opens on video? When I nodded, Michael continued. They are products that companies send her to promote. She earns between $500 and $2,000 for each promotion, depending on how many followers watch the video. $2,000? And your presence in the videos increases that amount because it makes her look authentic and family-friendly. Michael clenched his fists on the table. You have been working for her without knowing it, Mom. Your dignity has been her business model. Tears began to fall down my cheeks before I could stop them. All these months, while I thought I was being a good mother-in-law, that I was helping to maintain family peace, I had been exploited in the most calculated way possible. There's more, Michael said gently. The investigator also discovered that Noelle has been telling people that you have memory problems, which is why you sometimes look confused in the videos. Memory problems? Yes, to explain why you sometimes seem lost or disoriented. What she doesn't mention is that she keeps you up very late cleaning up after her recordings, or that she often doesn't allow you to eat until she finishes filming because the kitchen sounds ruin the audio. I remembered all those nights where I had fallen exhausted into my bed, and all those afternoons where I had waited hours to have lunch because Noelle was recording. I had thought I was being considerate of her work. In reality, I was being conditioned for her convenience. Michael, I said in a trembling voice, how could I be so blind? My son got up from his chair and came to hug me. Because you are a good person who wanted to believe the best about someone I loved. Because she systematically manipulated you for months. And because I wasn't here to protect you. Why weren't you here? Michael pulled away a little to look me in the eyes. Because my job wasn't what you thought it was, Mum. What do you mean? For the last 3 years, I haven't been working for a consulting firm. I have been building my own company. Michael took a deep breath. A financial technology company that I just sold for $85 million. The world stopped. 85 million? The deal closed last week. That's why I haven't been coming home so much. Not because I didn't want to see you, but because I was working day and night to secure our future. Michael took my hands. Our future, Mum. Yours and mine. Noelle knows. Noelle doesn't know anything. And she's not going to know anything. Michael's voice hardened. Because Noelle is no longer part of our lives. Upstairs, we could hear Noelle moving around the room, probably packing. The sound filled me with a satisfaction I hadn't felt in months. What's going to happen now? I asked. Michael smiled. And for the first time in a long time, it was a smile that reached his eyes. Now, Mum, you are going to discover what it feels like to be treated like the queen you have always been. At 10 o'clock in the morning the next day, Noelle came down the stairs, dragging 2 large suitcases and a backpack. She had been awake all night. I could hear her steps on the floor above, her desperate phone calls, and at some point, what clearly sounded like crying. Michael was sitting in the living room working on his laptop as if it were a completely normal day. He had slept in his old room and had gotten up early to make coffee and prepare breakfast for me. It was the first time in months that someone had cooked for me in my own house. Michael? Noelle said in a husky voice. We need to talk. My son didn't even look up from his computer. We have nothing to talk about. Please, just 5 minutes. Noelle approached the sofa where he was sitting, but Michael closed the laptop and stood up immediately. Your time ran out 5 minutes ago, he said, checking his watch. It was 12 o'clock in the afternoon, not 12 o'clock and 5 minutes. Michael, please, you have to understand. Noelle turned to me, who was observing from the kitchen doorway. Alice, tell him something. Tell him we can fix this. I took a deep breath. For months, I had avoided confrontations, swallowed my words, and maintained peace at the expense of my own dignity. But that woman no longer had power over me. The only thing I have to tell you, Noelle, I said with a calmness that surprised me, is that I hope I never see you again. Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they didn't move me. I had seen those same tears too many times, always conveniently appearing when she needed to manipulate a situation. You can't do this, she told Michael. We are husband and wife, we have marital rights. This house is also mine. Michael took some papers out of the inner pocket of his jacket. Here are the divorce papers. I already signed them. Your signature is waiting for you on my lawyer's desk. You already filed for divorce? Noelle's voice went up an octave. I filed yesterday morning. Michael walked toward the front door and opened it. And as for the house, I checked the property records. This house was never under community property because it was never sold, transferred, or mortgaged during our marriage. It remains the exclusive property of my mother. Noelle looked towards me with an expression of total panic. Alice, you can't allow this. I'm family. No, I replied firmly. Family does not humiliate and exploit its members to earn money. But I love you. Everything I did was to include you, to make you part of my work. Michael let out a dry laugh. Your work? Do you call earning money by humiliating a 68-year-old woman work? It's not humiliation, it's family content. It's exploitation, Michael said with a coldness that made my skin crawl. And now it's over. Noelle dropped her suitcases and walked towards Michael with a desperation that bordered on hysteria. Michael, you can't do this to me. My channel depends on this content. I have contracts with brands that expect Alice to appear in the videos. Those contracts are going to have to be cancelled. But they are going to sue me. They are going to ask me to return the money they already paid me. Michael shrugged. That's your problem. You have no idea how much money I'm talking about. I have commitments for more than $20,000 in the next 2 months. You should have thought about that before turning my mother into your unpaid employee. Noelle turned to me one last time, and this time I could see that she had abandoned all pretense of affection or manipulation. Her true colors were finally coming to the surface. "This is your fault," she screamed at me. "You put ideas in his head. You convinced him I was bad." "I didn't have to convince him of anything," I replied calmly. "Your own behavior spoke for itself." "But you were happy. You liked being in the videos. You always smiled." "I smiled because I thought I was being a good mother-in-law. I didn't know you were using me to earn money." Noelle was silent for a moment, and I could see the wheels turning in her head. Then she completely changed tactics. "Michael," she said with a suddenly sweet voice, "I know you're upset, but you can't throw 3 years of marriage away like this. We can go to marriage counseling. I can change my content. I can—" "No." Michael approached her until he was barely a few inches away. "Do you know what hurt me the most when I saw those videos? It wasn't just that you were humiliating my mother. It was realizing that you never loved me. That's not true. If you had loved me, you would have loved the woman who raised me. If you had loved me, you would have respected what is important to me. If you had loved me, you never would have been capable of hurting the person who matters most to me in this world." Noelle's tears were real now, but it was too late. Michael continued. "Instead, you saw an opportunity. You saw an older, gentle woman who wouldn't fight back, and you decided to turn her into your product. That's not love, Noelle. That's sociopathy." "Please," Noelle whispered, "give me a chance to fix this." "You already had your chance. You had it every day for the last 8 months, and every day you chose to humiliate my mother a little more." Michael picked up Noelle's suitcases and placed them outside on the porch. "You have 5 minutes to grab what you need and leave. If you are not off this property in 5 minutes, I'm calling the police." "The police? Michael, you can't be serious." 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Noelle looked at me one last time, and in her eyes, I saw something that surprised me. Pure hatred. Not regret, not sadness for what she had lost, but resentment towards me for ruining her business. "This won't be the end of it," she told me. "I'm going to tell my side of the story. I'm going to tell everyone how I was treated." Michael smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant smile. "Go ahead. Tell your version. In the meantime, I'm going to upload all the videos I downloaded from your channel to a public folder where anyone can see them, with timestamps and your followers' comments included." The color drained from Noelle's face. "I'm also going to share the private investigator's reports about your history with Robert Harris in Miami, including the photographs of the jewelry you stole from him." "No, you can't do that." "I can and I will if you try to damage my mother's reputation in any way." Michael checked his watch again. 3 minutes. Noelle ran toward the stairs, but Michael stopped her. "What you need is in these suitcases. You are not going back up to my house." "But my recording equipment." "You can pick it up on Saturday between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I will be present during the entire collection." Noelle grabbed her suitcases from the porch and headed towards her car. Before getting in, she turned one last time. "I hope you're happy together," she screamed. "A 30-year-old son who needs to live with his mummy and an old woman who can't live without attention." Michael didn't even blink. 1 minute and 30 seconds. And Noelle got into her car and started the engine with such force that the tires screeched against the pavement. We watched her drive away down the street until she completely disappeared from our sight. Michael closed the front door and turned to me with a smile I hadn't seen in years. "Welcome back to your own home, Mum." For the first time in 8 months, the silence in my home was perfect. 6 months later, I am sitting in my backyard, enjoying my morning coffee. The sun filters through the leaves of the oak tree I planted when Michael was little, creating patterns of light that dance on the pages of the book I am reading. It is a luxury I had forgotten. Reading for pleasure, without worrying about whether someone is recording me, or whether my expression looks interesting enough for a camera. The house is silent, but it is a beautiful silence. There is no buzzing recording equipment. There are no artificial lights shining. There are no fake voices talking to an invisible audience. It is just my home as it was before, as it should always have been. Michael moved back in with me 2 weeks after the divorce. At first, I protested, telling him that he didn't need to sacrifice his independence for me, but he explained that he wanted to be here, that he had missed our late-night conversations and our shared breakfasts. Plus, he had told me with that mischievous smile he kept from when he was a child. Now that I have $85 million, I can work from anywhere I want. And where better than in the house where I was happiest? With that money, Michael had transformed the basement into a modern office from where he managed his new investments. He had also renovated my bathroom, installing a jacuzzi tub for my aching joints, and had modernized the kitchen with appliances that made me feel like a professional chef. But the most important thing that had changed was my sense of dignity. Noelle had tried to fulfill her threat to tell her side of the story. A week after leaving, she had uploaded a tearful video to her channel talking about toxic families and manipulative mothers-in-law who couldn't accept that their children grew up. Michael had kept his promise. Within hours, he had published a compilation of all the videos where I appeared, along with screenshots of the cruelest comments and a summary of the private investigator's report on Noelle's past. The reaction was immediate and devastating for her. Her own followers began to criticize her, many saying that they had started following her channel precisely because they liked how she treated her adorable mother-in-law. Discovering that this family dynamic had been false and exploitative made them feel cheated. She lost more than 40,000 followers in a week. Her advertising contracts were cancelled. 3 brands asked her to return the money they had already paid her for future promotions that she could no longer fulfill. The video where she tried to defend herself received more dislikes than likes, and the comments were full of people sharing their own experiences with abusive family members. Many said that seeing my situation had helped them recognize similar patterns in their own lives. Eventually, Noelle deleted her channel completely. Michael had hired an investigator to follow her for the first few weeks after the divorce, not to harass her, but to ensure that she did not try to return or cause problems. We discovered that she had moved back to Miami, where she was apparently living with her sister and working in a beauty salon. She is where she belongs, Michael had said when we received the last report. Away from us and without a platform to hurt more people. What had surprised me most in these months was rediscovering who I was without the constant pressure of being recorded and judged. I had returned to cooking my favorite recipes without worrying about whether they looked photogenic. I had started painting watercolors, something I hadn't done since Michael was little. I had started reading the books I had wanted to read for years but had never had time to enjoy. I had also recovered my relationships. My sister Rose had come to visit me 3 weeks after Noelle left. At first, it was an awkward conversation. "Alice," she had told me, "I'm so sorry I didn't see what was happening." "We all saw what we wanted to see," I had replied. "Noelle was very good at what she did." "But I'm your sister. I should have noticed you weren't happy." I had taken her hand and told her the truth. "Rose, I myself didn't realize I wasn't happy. I thought I was being a good mother-in-law. I thought I was adapting to modern times. Now Rose comes to visit me every Friday, not to be part of any show, but to talk as sisters, as friends, As the women we were before our lives became complicated with cameras and audiences, Michael and I had developed new routines that filled me with happiness. Every morning we had breakfast together while he told me about his work projects, and I talked to him about my books or my paintings. On Sundays, we cooked together, preparing elaborate meals that we enjoyed without rush, without interruptions, without anyone documenting every moment. "You know what I like most about this?" Michael had told me one Sunday while we made biscuits and gravy together. "That I can have you all to myself, without audiences, without a performance, without anyone else trying to steal your attention." Those words had reached my heart, because they expressed something I had felt but hadn't been able to articulate. During those months with Noel, I had not only lost my privacy and my dignity, I had lost real intimacy with my family. One October afternoon, while tidying my closet, I found the white blouse I had been wearing the day of the soup incident. It had been stored at the back of the closet, still with a faint stain that had never completely come out. I held it in my hands for a moment, remembering how I had felt that day. Humiliated, invisible, turned into entertainment for strangers. Then I carefully folded it and put it in a bag to donate. Not because I wanted to get rid of the memory, but because that memory no longer defined me. It was part of my story, but it wasn't the end of my story. That same night, Michael and I were watching a movie in the living room when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Alice?" The voice was that of a young woman, nervous. "My name is Patricia. I saw the videos of what happened to you with your daughter-in-law." Michael paused the movie and looked at me with concern, but I signaled that I was fine. "How can I help you, Patricia?" "I think my sister-in-law is doing something similar to me. She has me living in her house and records me all the time for her social media. At first, I thought it was normal, but after seeing your situation, I don't know what to do." I talked with Patricia for almost an hour that night. I gave her the number for Michael's lawyer. I suggested resources for women in situations of abuse, and more importantly, I assured her that she wasn't crazy, that what she was experiencing was not normal or acceptable. "You were very brave," she told me before hanging up. "I didn't feel brave," I replied honestly. "But sometimes bravery isn't about feeling strong. Sometimes it's simply deciding that you deserve something better." After that call, I received many more. Women of all ages who had seen my story and recognized similar patterns in their own lives. Some were daughters-in-law abused by mothers-in-law. Others were mothers-in-law exploited by daughters-in-law. Some were adult daughters being manipulated by narcissistic parents. Michael had suggested that I write a book about my experience, but I wasn't interested. I didn't want to turn my pain into another product. Instead, I decided that I would simply be available for anyone who needed to hear that they were not alone. Now, sitting in my garden with my coffee and my book, I reflect on these last few months. The mark on my arm has completely faded, but the lessons I learned remain clear. I learned that true love does not require you to sacrifice your dignity. I learned that real family does not turn you into entertainment. I learned that at 68, it's never too late to reclaim your voice. But more than anything, I learned that silence can be powerful when it is a choice, not when it is imposed by fear or manipulation. Michael comes out to the garden with his own cup of coffee and sits in the chair next to me. "What are you thinking about?" he asks me. "How grateful I am," I reply, taking his hand. "To have you, to have this house, to have my life back. I'm the grateful one, Mum, for raising you to be the strong woman you are, even when you didn't feel strong." We sit in silence, enjoying the morning sun and the perfect peace of a home that is finally ours again. In the distance, I hear the sound of the wind rustling the leaves of the oak tree. It is the same tree under which Michael played when he was a child, where I used to sit and read when he did his homework, and where I now enjoy the tranquility that I had lacked for so long. Some endings aren't dramatic. There are no fireworks or grand declarations. Sometimes the perfect ending is simply the peace of knowing that you are exactly where you belong, with the people who truly love you, living the life you deserve. And for the first time in a long time, that life is completely mine.